It's now to talk about this and some other issues. Republican Senator Shelley Capito of West Virginia, who has introduced the ADVANCE Act, which has passed the House and is expected to see a vote in the Senate later. The bill would boost growth and use of nuclear energy here in the U.S. And Senator, we welcome you back to Bloomberg TV and radio. It's great to have you with us. This country's had a bit of an allergy toward nuclear power, going back to 3 Mile Island, more recently what we saw in Fukushima. Are the new demands from data centers and AI, new demands for power on our grid, enough to increase the appetite here in the U.S. to start making new ones?
Well, I think you pose a great question, and I think that the answer is yes. We need an all-of-the-above energy plan that provides not just for the growing energy needs that we see right now, but also for the future, whether that's data centers or AI, or a more electrification of whatever, vehicles and others. And so nuclear power, I think, provides a great opportunity here. There are different technologies coming on, small modular nuclear reactors that are much smaller, they're much more compact, they operate on different systems, and that's what the ADVANCE Act that we're going to be voting on today, that I've sponsored and moved over the last year to make sure that we have the technology, the licensing, and the innovation that we need to capitalize on nuclear power. And I'm really excited about this for every state, for my state of West Virginia, because it could help us with transitioning some of our power plants that were coal-fired power plants that are no longer in service, but they have the transmission, so we can put small nuclear there and be able to power the nation as we always have.
So, Senator, does one supplant the other? Does nuclear power's gain automatically become coal's loss? How does this play at home?
Absolutely not. I would not be advocating for anything that would supplant coal or natural gas. I think you have to look at it exponentially. When you look at what the predictions are for the demands on the grid over the next 10, 20 years, and remember, these nuclear plants, before they could come online, are going to be probably 4, 5, and 6 years into the future. We're going to need all of this. The wind can't blow anymore, and the sun can't shine anymore, and I think that we know that the base load demands that we're going to have for our own national security, for our own economic security, we need nuclear to be a part of this, and that's what I think these small reactors will provide.
I want to ask you about some economic issues, Senator, following Donald Trump's visit to Washington last week, his first trip to the Capitol, as we know, since January 6th. And it wasn't only lawmakers he was talking to, it was also members of the business community. And his ideas to put an across-the-board 10% global tariff on goods has been floated as a way to offset the cost of tax cuts. It's something that we talked about earlier today here on Bloomberg with Mick Mulvaney, the former acting White House chief of staff in the Trump administration. Here's what he thought about this proposal.
On the tariff plan for taxes, that one I don't put any credence in at all. The idea of raising tariffs to get rid of the income tax, that was a throwaway line. It takes you. I've talked to the policy people inside the Trump policy team. None of them have mentioned that. It's a cycle into disaster.
Yeah.
So the math doesn't work on tariffs replacing income taxes.
I don't want to make you do any math here this evening, Senator, but I wonder, if you support making the Trump tax cuts permanent, how should you pay for them?
Well, I absolutely do. Am in favor of making the Trump tax cuts permanent. I voted for them eight years ago, and I believe that they, at the time and even now, provided not just tax relief for every American, but helped businesses to grow, helped capital investments to incur, and helped our own economy. And we saw this really pre-COVID. COVID obviously threw a kink into the growth that we were seeing that was resulting from these policies specifically. And so they're all set to expire. The death tax the same way, which harms our farmers and other small business owners. And so I think we need to move forward with this tax relief. I think that traditionally over in the Senate, we haven't really paid for tax relief, in that we have provided the growth that's provided by tax relief is there to pay for that tax relief. On the tariff issue, here's my concerns there. every time you place a tariff on a good, and I think we've obviously had steel tariffs that I've supported and aluminum and others that I'm very supportive of because of the uneven trade practices. But you're driving the cost of goods up in our own country if we do something like a blanket tariff. So we'll have to see what President Trump will say when he's elected and what kind of policies he'll put forward. But he's going to find a supporter for his tax cuts in me and I think many other senators.
Well, Senator, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget suggests that if those were to be made permanent, it would add $4 trillion to the deficit. And just today, we've learned from the Congressional Budget Office that their estimate for the deficit this year has gone up 27% to almost $2 trillion. As we talk about potentially lower revenue, at the same time, I know that there are colleagues of yours on the Senate Appropriations Committee pursuing an idea of, say, increased spending on defense, and no one wants to touch Social Security and Medicare. How is all of this logistically supposed to work together?
Well, we don't have a revenue problem as much as we have a spending problem. And that does come with Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid absolutely driving this. What I think that takes is a moment in history and in time that we saw in the 1980s with President Reagan, where we sit down at the table and not just create a commission to have suggestions, but we actually look at ways for the long term we can preserve those very valuable programs, and we can also preserve them for the long term. That absolutely needs to occur, and it hasn't. It has not occurred. So, but it's going to have to, because you see as the projections of the trust funds are projected to go under in 10 years or so, whatever the latest projections are. In terms of the deficit, what was announced today, the $1.9 trillion deficit, which is $400 billion more than was originally predicted in February. Well, almost all of that extra $400 billion is because the president alleviated student debt. That was not a congressional prerogative. It is deeply rejected, I think, in my state as an inequitable way to move forward. And so I think that, you have to have policies that cut the spending, but also rein in the spending that you're obligated to do. And so I think we can do that, but we have to do it bipartisan, and that's where the difficulty lies.
All right, Republican Senator Shelley Capito of West Virginia joining us from Capitol Hill this evening. Thank you so much.